Each theatre in London has a fireman, and they're supposed to stay there all night to make sure the place doesn't go up in flames. There's probably a holdover from the 18th century. Whenever the guy was sick, one of us would have to stand in, and you'd have to go and patrol and stuff like that. You get some extra money by staying there all night. I was working in there on a Saturday doing some overtime. There was a microphone, and you could hear everything that happened on the stage. And some nights I'd hear footsteps, and I was convinced I heard voices.
Everybody has a past, and so does every building. Its energy can be traumatic, or it can be happy. And every building, just like every person, has baggage. And that history spawns some of the most chilling tales ever. I'm Lawrence Chow. Today we'll meet Ian and Rick, two men who believe they saw firsthand that historic buildings don't just carry baggage, they can carry ghosts. The 1960s. The Cambridge Theatre in London's famous West End was still the new kid on a block of century-old playhouses, 40 years old, but with enough history already to have its own ghostly legends. And for young Ian McLean, working around all that history proved to be a terrifying job.
When I was younger, I used to see stuff, but I used to immediately dismiss it. But things that you just can't ignore anymore or brush off seemed to come to a head at the Cambridge. I was working in there on a Saturday doing some overtime. Because the Cambridge had the lighting console backstage, you had to be very quiet up there because the stage is right there. And I used to sit up there sometimes on some shows when I worked alone up there, and I feel someone pull my clothing. We're actually getting like a yank. It wasn't just a touch, it was a distinct yank on your clothing when I was up there by myself. You know, this is an open area with a ladder that went up to it, so nobody can sneak up and do it. You're up there by yourself. And other times I'd hear people saying, Ian, Ian, just very quiet, very insistent most of the time, as if they had some huge message to impart to me. And it was kind of creepy. Not only was I seeing things and hearing things like footsteps and voices when I know the place is empty, but when I used to feel a physical touch, that kind of started getting a bit creepy. And I don't have the kind of excitable imagination that puts up with that. So I usually used to keep it very close to my chest and not broadcast it around. One night when I was walking around on my patrol, there was a back staircase that went from the stage up past the royal box up to the upper circle. I turned a corner in the staircase, and there, standing right in front of me, was this guy. He was standing a couple of stairs up, so he was taller than I was. He had substance, but he was like vapor at the same time, but it was like a solid vapor. He had a glow to him. It was the embodiment of all the little tiny suspicions I'd been writing off all this time. The effect it had on me, which was to get the hell out of there. Everything that had happened, I could lay away somewhere. I could say, well, I'm hearing echoes from somewhere else, if it's footsteps, or I'm hearing voices from the street that are being picked up by the stage microphone. But that night when I saw that thing, I couldn't make excuses anymore. Being confronted by that fella on the stairs was unavoidable. I'm trying to think of an analogy. It's like when you're on a boat at sea and you're watching a storm coming and you can get everything ready, but you can keep avoiding it. It's only when the thing whacks you that you know you're in a storm. That's when you're in a storm, when it hits you. And that's the same as when I came down around those stairs. There was this thing, and there was no avoiding it. There was no avoiding the reality that there was something going on in that theater or around me. Because the National Theatre was in there, and it was a repertory company. Each show was different each night. I would have to go up to the lighting console, which is by the side of the stage, make sure everything's preset for that night's show. I would need an assistant up there because this thing was like a Hammond organ. You played it with your hands and your feet. I was whispering to this guy, his name was John, during the show, which was Hedda Gabler with Maggie Smith, that sometimes when I'm up there, I feel people saying my name and pulling my clothing. And he's giving me the usual, yeah, okay, look. Right underneath this concrete platform I used to sit on was the prompt corner, and that's where you get your instructions from for lighting moves. And the last scene in Hedda Gabler was when Maggie Smith takes a gun from a drawer at the rear stage, then walks down to the front of the stage and shoots herself. There's no audio cue from the prompt corner. The cue is the gunshot. And that's my cue to flip this little tab, cause a dead blackout in the theater. When she makes this move, I think the last line she says is, "The only cock on the dung heap." And then she walks down to the front of the stage, and it takes a few seconds. The place is literally dead silent. You can hear a pin drop in that theater. I can see her out the corner of my eye, too, because the stage is to my right. Waiting, waiting. She lifts the gun up. And then from behind this lighting console comes this sound. The sound came from directly behind this lighting console. And there's nothing there. There's a wall that goes straight up. It's like the guy or whatever it was lying back there. I just didn't know what it was. I literally didn't have a clue what it could be. And as it grew louder and louder, I think I thought to myself, oh, geez, here we go again. It's something else. I think subconsciously I thought, well, at least I've got witnesses now to this one because you just can't ignore it. Yeah, there's something around here and it's not very benign. I think everybody knew that what they heard wasn't man-made. It wasn't somebody goofing around. It was something so otherworldly that nobody could come to any other conclusion.
Most of Ian's experiences fall into the category of poltergeist activity. Reports of similar events date all the way back to 530 AD. Experts don't always agree about what causes them, but they do agree that poltergeist activity is violently dramatic. If there are such noisy spirits, they'd be right at home in a theater.
I had a lot of free time, if you will, so I found this job at a hotel, working graveyard shifts. Virtually everybody had an encounter of the supernatural at this hotel, which was a very uneasy place to walk through. You could tell there had been a history there.
Rick Lamoureux has his own horrifying poltergeist stories. Like Ian's, they come from an historic building. But in Rick's case, it was a deeply troubled history. And it made his college job at an old Ottawa hotel a living hell.
Over time, I would hear stories just by listening to other people talking about incidences they had. Some were you know, more traumatic than others. And the one that stands out in my mind, I mean, horrific. This guy purchased a gallon of red paint and opened it up, and all over the furniture, the walls, the ceiling, bedding, he had put satanic inscriptions of pentagrams and 666. The maids had found him one morning. I found a job at a hotel in downtown Ottawa. After working there for a while, I would start to inquire with the other staff if there had been stories they'd heard. And the one that stands out in my mind, I mean, horrific. This guy purchased a gallon of red paint. He had put satanic inscriptions of pentagrams and 666. The maids had found him one morning after he hadn't checked out. He took the blade to his own throat. Awful. Very disturbing, indeed. It was my first night on the job alone in the sub-basement. It was the housekeeping department. Now, I would go down there after my chores were done. My shift was 11 to 7, so probably around 2 o'clock, I had free time to do my studies, and I was in there reading my textbook. I liked it down there because it was quiet. And I'm reading away, and I can hear something. I'm hearing whispers or chatter. It's very faint. When I start to think about it, it goes away. It was lighter than a whisper. Now I can hear it, and it's not fading out. It's still just as quiet, though, very faint. As I step forth into this area, I can hear the whisperings now and the chatter at a more intense level. I'm definitely hearing it. What I'm hearing is a group of people talking. It would be similar to if you went to a party and everybody's talking, and because of that, it sounds like a mumble. You can't make out any particular wording or phrasing. So I'm approaching closer, and I'm getting to the corner of the corridor. Now, I knew if I peeked around there, something might happen. Of course, in my mind, I'm thinking nothing's going to happen. I'm trying to tell myself, be cool, relax, confront, do this, be okay. So I'm taking another step forward, and the voices get louder, this chatter. Creepy. They use this kind of sound in movies all the time to scare you, and but I'm actually hearing it. And I don't need to use an electronic device to grab this sound. It's happening right to my own ears. Where's the sound going internally into my head? I don't know, but I'm hearing this. I decided, just jump out into the corridor and take it on, whatever's there. And the voices were getting louder. And I could almost make out words, but not quite. And it was a breaking point. It was either do it or don't do it. And I just did this kind of leap of faith, if you will, and I just leaped into this area. I saw it. It was an apparition, and I could see its profile. What was bizarre, it was already halfway through the wall, and it was sort of looking at me, if you will, like its head was turned like that, and I was looking at it. It was a man, maybe in his 30s. And what I saw was a semi-transparent apparition. I could make out details. I could see he had a striped shirt on with some jeans. The split second that I noticed him in that time, he dissolved into the wall and vanished. So I ran up to the spot where this thing went through the wall. It's so unbelievable. You just don't expect something like that to happen. Was there an opening that I wasn't aware of? Was there a doorway? Maybe my eyes were playing tricks or something. And of course, when I got there, there was nothing except this wall. I started to feel some fear enter me because I couldn't explain what I had just encountered. Ran right outside, grabbed my coat, and seriously contemplated quitting my job. Thankfully, I had a couple of days off after that, and I did return to work, but it was never the same after that. Some people that work there, they're convinced that he is the ghost of this particular hotel, and I have reason to believe that too. It was the off-season. We only had possibly 3 or 4 guests in the entire hotel. What I used to do on these quieter nights was I would bring myself in a guitar to play. And in the men's washroom, I found the acoustics were phenomenal. And with my lousy voice, I need phenomenal acoustics, believe me. Okay. So I'm in there, and I'm playing for maybe an hour. And then I'm conscious, I'm wide awake, I'm having a great time, strumming and singing my songs, and then it happens. It was the off-season. We only had possibly 3 or 4 guests in the entire hotel. What I used to do on these quieter nights was I would bring myself in a guitar to play. I'd been playing for possibly an hour or so, enjoying myself, and then it happened, so suddenly. When that noise hit, I abruptly stopped what I was doing, and my first instinct was, oh my God, my boss is here, or there's a prowler, or there's a prankster. Like, nothing else happened. It was just that knocking, and that's all it took. It's all it took for me to get really creeped out. So I opened the bathroom door expecting to hear or see something of an unworldly nature. And of course, all I saw was silence and darkness. I think that terrified me even more. I was absolutely petrified. In 1964, there was a fire, and at the time it was considered the largest hotel fire in Canadian history. Several people lost their lives that night. The fire started in the kitchen and spread throughout the entire lobby area, sealed off the elevators, which I'm told 2 people were found dead inside the elevators. It was horrible what they found. They found scratch marks on the paneling inside, people trying to get out. They were unsuccessful. But there was a hero in the story. It was a switchboard operator. Addie was her name. She realized that she had the means to save lives. She started calling room after room to get people out of there. This was a time before they had fire alarms. There she was, beside the kitchen where the fire was, and she was calling one after the other. And managers and staff were reported later how they kept telling her, come on, get out of there. You're gonna be trapped. She wouldn't listen. She called more and more and more. She never came out. The fire crew found her body. She died that day, saving others. I was in the women's washroom tidying up. It was right at the end of my shift, I remember that. I was rushing to get out of there. Not because I was scared, because it was time to go. And as I exited the ladies' washroom, I could hear the voice, and it was coming right into my ear, as if there was a face speaking right in my ear. It's a female voice, a lady, and she's saying my name. When I heard the voice calling my name, that's when I decided this has to be this switchboard operator who died in 1964 in this dreadful fire. I think she was calling out to me to perhaps save me from something. I felt the panic meter starting, and I said, I just fought and said, no, just, you know what, you're done with your shift, just go. Just finish up and get out of here.
If the ghostly name caller was Addie, the telephone operator, then she is an example of a spirit staying attached to the event that killed her. Strange things happen in hotels. They offer anonymity, so people sometimes do bizarre things in them that they wouldn't do at home, like commit suicide. Most hotels don't carry traces of that psychic energy, but some, like Rick's, may hold on to their psychic history. Theaters seem to hold on to their past more tightly. Almost every old theater has tales of hauntings. There's a lot of superstition surrounding theaters and the people who work in them. Some would say their creativity and passion make them more open to the paranormal, and that's why more ghosts are reported in theaters. But others would say that any historic building harbors ghosts. I have a feeling Ian and Rick would agree.
Because I'm a skeptic, I kind of go, well, you know, who knows? And I always thought that about what I was seeing. I never really told anybody about it. But when this sound happened, it happened in front of 1,300 people. I doubt there was a soul in that theater who didn't hear it. And it literally frightened the life out of me.
I would think about these different events that happened to me over this time, and I would wonder which was more horrific to experience. Was it seeing something that was unnatural, or was it hearing something that was unearthly? To me, it was hearing something that got under my skin.